This week's talk is, we're starting a 10-part series on Prosperity's 10 Commandments by Georgiana Tree West. But before that, I wanted to tell you of my holiness, the Reverend Shawn's holiness. I have the Holy Bible personalized for Shawn Moninger. In case you don't know, my name is on here. Personalized. Now let me tell you how it's personalized. This is one of my favorites. In case you weren't sure, the good news for Shawn Moninger, according to Luke. So it's not just on the front. It's not just on the leather. It's in 1,700 places in this Bible. They put my name. And so I thought I would tell you how the 10 Commandments were written for me.
Is this to ensure no one steals it?
Well, no one who isn't Shawn. Yes, this is true. Okay, I'll be right with you. God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord Shawn's God, who brought Shawn out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Shawn shall have no other gods before me. Shawn shall not make for himself an idol, nor any image of anything that is in the heavens above, or that is in the earth beneath. Shawn shall not bow himself down to them, nor serve them. I, the Lord, his God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, on the third and on the fourth generation of those who hate me, and showing loving kindness to Shawn, because he loves me and keeps my commandments. Shawn shall not take the name of the Lord his God in vain. Boy, I'm glad I heard that today. For the Lord will not hold Shawn guiltless if he takes his name in vain. Well, you get the point.
Love David.
You get the point. I shall be reading more about how God loves Shawn in upcoming weeks. Because you see, it's a big book. It is a, yeah, we'll get to that another time. This first, did you all get that? There was in your what do you call that program? You see, there's a handout. Put it on your refrigerator. Copy it. Put it next to your computer. Do all sorts of things. Did you get a program? The Davidsons need a couple of programs, please. Wow. Could we give time to a couple of nice programs over there, please? What were you guys doing out there? This first commandment in Prosperity's 10 Commandments says, he says, I shall look to no other source but God for my good. Well, the only way to really do that is to get an understanding of God. Because God is not a benefactor, as it were. God is not a Santa Claus. So many of us, we're still, after all this time studying all this stuff, still begging God to give us something. And we're begging God to give us something that was already given. And we're not asking ourselves to give it to us. If God is the source that has already given us, be as generous as God, is what I have to tell you here. Be as generous to yourself as God has been to you. God is not a person who gave it to you because you're nice. God is not a person who gave you anything because you were well behaved, Lord knows. God is not a person who gave you anything for any reason other than you're the Son of God. And so it is just innate within you. Whatever God is innate within us. Period. And so now, would you be as generous to give yourself what God is without judgment, without condition, would you decide it doesn't matter what you have thought or what you have done or what was done to you, it's okay to go ahead and accept your inheritance because it came directly from the source. You see, I can't give it to you. Your parents can't give it to you. Your neighbors can't give it to you. There is no church in the world that can give it to you. The grocery store clerk can't give it to you. Your spouse can't give it to you. Your ex-spouse can't give it to you. The spouse before that can't give it to you. And however back any of you need to go. None of us. Our children can't give it to us, and we can't give it to our children. I shall look to no other source but God for my good. So it seemed to me I needed to get some understanding of God if I'm going to believe this, if I'm going to get in alignment with this commandment. First of all, I'm going to tell you what the commandments are. Georgiana Tree West, which is an old writer from Unity. This book was published in 1944. 44 or 46. We have it available in the bookstore. I highly recommend it. These old Unity classics are great stuff. Prosperity's 10 Commandments by Georgiana Tree West. And she says the 10 Commandments are cardinal laws for human society. Cardo in Latin means hinge. Therefore, cardinal laws are those on which other laws depend or hinge. They are fundamental laws because they are the basis or foundation upon which all principles of right action may be built. The 10 Commandments will serve as a basis of right action for all people at all times and in all ways as the fundamental truth in each as better understood. As our understanding grows, we are able to see greater meaning in these laws and to make broader application of them. So, we're reading the Revealing Word, what Charles Fillmore says God is. Because that's how you're going to turn it over to God. Otherwise, you're going to keep trying to fix it yourself. You're going to keep trying to figure out what is figured out. And as long as you are trying to figure it out, you're resisting the best solution. You get that? When you are trying to solve a problem, you are resisting the fact that there is no problem. The closest we can come to a problem is that I'm not willing to see. I'm not willing to see the Christ in all. I'm not willing to acknowledge God in this now. I'm not willing to ask Spirit to show me the truth in it. That's my problem. And that is my only problem. But again, it's not even a real problem because it is already figured out. There is already truth here. But I will delay the journey of giving myself the gift of understanding that was already given to me in the beginning. So, in the Revealing Word, God, the Almighty One, the Creator, the ruler of the universe, the infinite, the eternal. God is not person, but principle. Do we hear that? God is not person, but principle. Therefore, God does not decide anything. God is not going to decide in your favor. There's no decision to be made. Love is always going to be love, so we don't have to worry any longer. We do not have to concern ourselves with whether or not our parents love us. We do not have to concern ourselves any longer with whether our parents used to love us. We can feel it, we can cry for it, but we don't have to be concerned. There is a difference. We don't have to worry about the price of things. We don't have to worry any longer about who is nice to us and who says the right thing to us. We don't have to concern ourselves with our personalities and who has offended us today. God is principle. God is not going to decide for or against us. It is already, the decision was made in the beginning, and it's in our favor. God is the underlying, unchangeable truth. What that means is we're not going to make God what God isn't. No matter how hard we try, we're never going to make God what God isn't. We're never going to make God the untruth. God as principle is absolute good expressed in all creation. When men know God in spirit and truth, they recognize Him as the great goodness, omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. Omnipresent meaning all the presence that there is. Omniscient, all the wisdom that there is. And omnipotent, all the power that there is. Power itself, presence itself, wisdom itself. God is personal to us when we recognize God within us as our indwelling life, intelligence, love, and power. There's a difference between a personal God and God personal to us. Since the word personal sometimes leads to misunderstanding, it would probably be better to speak of God individualized in man rather than of God personal in man. And so God is individualized in each of us. And that's where we get our free will and our choice and our ability. In Townley's Bible class Friday night, we were talking about free will and everything, and the I am. He was talking about Moses and the I am coming down, and how the misuse of our I am can lead to difficulties in our life experience. And that is because the love that God is allows us to demonstrate our thoughts while we are in this. So if I have a thought of lack, I will experience lack while there is nothing but abundance. There is total abundance, but I will experience lack because I have a thought of lack. It's not that it's a punishment. That's the love that is. You want to experience lack today. I love you. Go ahead. Go ahead. But there isn't any. You don't have to worry. You don't have to convince yourself that there's lack. There is only love. There is so much love. There is all the love that there is. So go ahead and have your life experience. But I'll stay over here and I'll know the truth. It's the prodigal son story. The father at home still was at home knowing the truth about his son, even though his son went out into a far country, forgetting the truth of himself. We don't have to worry. We will delay our journey for as long as we want to, but we can go back home. And going back home means coming to ourselves, coming to the reality of ourselves, when we no longer use anything or anyone as an excuse to forget. And I'm talking about the people we love the most. We will use them as an excuse to forget, just as we will use the people we hate the most as an excuse to forget who we actually are. We use them as a source other than God. We use our parents and our spouses and our children as an excuse to pretend there is a source of our good or our bad that is other than God, rather than asking God to show God's self through these people on the days we like them and on the days we don't. How often do you look in the mirror first thing in the morning and say, God, show yourself to me, through me today? To look in the mirror and say, hi, God. To greet God by looking in the mirror. First thing as you're brushing your teeth, before you criticize what you look like in that mirror. Because how could God be unattractive? How could God have bad hair? How could God have bad skin? How could God be anything that is to criticize? Therefore, you greet God first before you start your ritual of complaint. Those of you who have a ritual of complaint. I'm not saying it's all of you, but I guarantee it's some of you. And so, God is that from which all love springs. He is life and love and wisdom and power and strength and substance. We do not see God with our physical eyes, except as He manifests Himself through His works. His attributes are therefore brought into expression by man, who is His Son and who is like Him in essence. How many times a day do you remind yourself that you are the essence of God? I bet you remind yourself, well, some, not all of you, Some of you remind yourself several times a day that you are either stupid, unattractive, unhealthy, a victim. You know, we do that, but how often is I am the essence of God in action. I am the essence of good in action. So which do you wish to demonstrate? Stupid or essence? Which do you wish to demonstrate? Ugly or essence? Which do you wish to demonstrate? Victim or essence? We're choosing all the time. That is our free will, to choose which we want to experience today. How wonderful that we have a choice. And God is not going to make us not think something. God is not going to make us... Holy Spirit is not going to change our consciousness unless we ask for help in changing our consciousness. A high consciousness will not be forced upon us. It doesn't have to be. God already won. That's the thing. It's not like we're going to lose. It's not like God's going to lose. It's not like God is separate from us. It's not like we're separate from God. While we're under the illusion that we're different than each other, or we are separate from each other, while we're pretending by putting on different clothes and having judgments about each other, some not so righteous, you know, about our complimenting and our criticizing each other and pretending that we are somehow separate, especially from the people we don't like. You know, those mirrors that are just irksome. But again, if it's a mirror, what's in the mirror? Me. And so what am I judging? I remember years ago, I've told this story before, but years ago I think I had just come from therapy. And I was on the A train down in the village, going up to Midtown, and it's the only time I've truly had this experience where I knew every person on that train was me. I was so clear that every person in that subway car was me. And I thought, I had better find something good about every person on this train. Because otherwise, I'm just going to be criticizing myself. And I could, you know, coming from therapy, it's not a great time to hate yourself. So, you know, I had to look around at all the oddity on the train. You know, because in my judgment, there's odd, look around this room. We're odd people. And it's because none of us lives the same as the other one. Dear Lord, David and I live in the same house, and we're odd to each other. We're oddities from day one. Our thoughts are so different. You know, David and I did not get together because we finish each other's sentences. No, we try to restructure each other's thoughts on many days, but we don't finish each other's sentences. We do not complete each other. We are here to enlighten each other. Some days we are willing recipients of that, and other days we are in high resistance. You know, we are on orange alert. I hadn't thought of that till just now. But that's good. That's a good one. And some days, you know, some of us are in the church are on orange alert or red alert because we're terrified of the conflict that might come up because we have thoughts. But sometimes we have those thoughts and we forget to ask Spirit what to think. It's like, oh, I got it from here, God. And we go around putting each other in a box. And we put ourselves in a box. And we're not looking to God as our source. We're trying to find other sources. We're trying to find our own limited mind as the source. We're trying to find each other's limited mind as the source. We're trying to use our grievances as the source. We're trying to use lack, the appearance of lack, as our source of abundance. That's how insane we are. We will complain about prices and wonder why we don't have more money. We will complain about each other and wonder why we don't have more money. We will complain about the floor and the ceiling and the sky and the sidewalk and our cars and our employers and our children and our spouses and ourselves and our bodies and our hair and our whatever, and wonder why we don't have what it is we want, or why we're not happy with what we have. And we will beg God to take this away from us. But never once, for some of us, does it occur to us, Spirit, I need help to change my consciousness. Spirit, I need the thoughts that would change my consciousness. I need the vision that would change my consciousness about everything, that would change my perception about everything. Because I'm afraid that if it happens, everything I know will be upside down and different than I've ever known it. And what will I do then? Well, it hasn't yet occurred to me that I would live freely. That I would live unencumbered unencumbered from lack, unencumbered by being free to live, by being free to love, by knowing that I have all that I need right within me. Because that's where God is living, is right within me. And I see God from the inside out. That's how I'm always going to see God. It's from the inside out, not the outside in. See, I can look at Sharon and say, oh, God, Sharon is so wonderful. My goodness, she is just the embodiment of God. But you see, I can't recognize that in Sharon unless it's in me. And that is the only way it's ever going to happen. So, here's the deal. Acknowledge God first. Seek ye first the kingdom first, as I have said so many times. Look to no other source but God for your good. And it doesn't mean look in the sky for your good. It means look in the truth for your good. Look to peace for your good. What is God? Look to power and presence for your good. This is the source of your good. Your mother is not the source of your good. Your father is not the source of your good. Your brother and your sister is not the source of your good. And your money isn't the source of your good. And your job isn't the source of your good. And your employers aren't the source of your good. And I'm not the source of your good. And each other is not the source of your good. We are blessed channels of God. We are blessed channels of God. Therefore, we are not each other's source, but we are divine channels. And your work is a divine channel. And your mother is a divine channel. And your father is a divine channel. And your brothers and your sisters are divine channels. And your children are divine channels. And you are a divine channel. There is the difference between source and resource. Between source and channel. Let it all be a wonderful source, or, channel of the one source. But acknowledge that there is only one source and one supply. And as long as you are willing to live in that abundant supply, then you shall live in that abundant supply. One day, years ago, David, I was exclaiming how great my life was, and David let me know what kind of a channel he had been through that. And I said, yeah, but if you didn't, somebody else would. And it sounded a little unkind. But the fact is, if I weren't willing to experience abundant channels, David couldn't be there. Do we get that? It's nice to say thank you, but if I claim David as my source, I'm going to worry about losing David. And there's nothing to kill a relationship like worrying about losing them. There's nothing to get rid of something in your life like worrying about losing it. Think about how you worry about money. Those of you who worry about money, you don't have enough, do you? The ones who worry about money do not have enough money. We used to have a lot more money than we had back when we worried about money. We don't have as much money now, and we don't worry about it as much. It's interesting to see. But the money, while it was being worried about, it went right out the door. Goodbye, stock market, thank you. And it's saying, okay, we're still us. We're still us. The source of good is God. Next week, we're going to just talk about you shall make no mental image of lack. But it all starts with the first commandment. It always did. In the original commandments, you shall have no other gods before me. And the reason for that is there are no other gods before God. There are no gods before God. We can pretend, but there are no gods before God. I shall look to no other source but God for my good. Can we say that together? I shall look to no other source but God for my good. Let's say it again. I shall look to no other source but God for my good. And one more time. I shall look to no other source but God for my good. So it is.